So Willicroft began about 3 years ago. I moved to the Netherlands and found it pretty easy to give up meat and milk, but really struggled to give up cheese. And I think that was made a lot harder by the alternatives in the supermarkets. And my grandfather was a dairy farmer, so I grew up with fantastic dairy produce. And he also taught me a lot of basic recipes with regards to cheese. So I started experimenting at home in my kitchen using similar processes to what I'd been taught, similar nutritionals, but obviously with a very different ingredient base. What was initially very much a pet project at home soon sort of spiraled out of control. And much to I think my partner's demise, it became a real kind of hybrid of activity, the apartment. For about a year, I was keeping it very artisanal, selling market to market, going store to store. And then I kind of got to a crossroads where I saw that there was a lot of need for good alternatives out there, but no one had really solved the issue that I first had when I came here, which was good quality plant-based cheese at mass retail. So before Willicroft came on the scene, there were really two types of plant-based cheese maker. You had your coconut and palm oil based plant-based cheese that kind of looks like cheese, kind of melts a little bit like cheese, but the taste is not gonna fool any dairy cheese lover anytime soon. And then on the flip side, you've got some really fantastic artisanal plant-based cheese makers who are using a lot of fermentation processes and a lot of kind of traditional techniques to make their cheeses. They're often held back by the fact that they don't have a very long shelf life. The ingredient cost is very high, and the time taken to make the recipes is quite extensive. So we kind of looked at those two models and realized that there were benefits to both, and have tried to create something that is a hybrid of the two. And what that looks like in practice is we're actually switching our entire range to beans and pulses. So I can resonate with some of the thoughts of the first speaker for sure with regards to those ingredients. The main reason we're doing that is actually from an emission standpoint. The emissions of nut-based products are actually really high. And I think a big step for us was really measuring our impact and actually getting those numbers down, because I think you can only really truly claim to be an impact-driven business when you have your numbers, because they really are very telling as to where you need to put your focus. It might be packaging, it might be transportation, it might be the supply chain, but it's a really important step. And for us, it was a tough thing to take because we're a very idealistic startup, and we saw that we weren't creating as much good as we hoped. And although our emissions were lower than dairy cheese, we needed to get nuts out of our supply chain in order to make them truly lower. So from next year, we're going to be based entirely from beans and pulses. Currently, at the moment, we already have pretty good distribution. So we're supplying 500 supermarkets across the Netherlands, UK, and Belgium. We've got some really kind of proficient impact-based projects that we're just getting our teeth into at the moment. So we're big on kind of transitional farming. We really believe that it is our responsibility to work with the dairy industry to help it transform from within, as opposed to pointing fingers. I think there is obviously a lot that needs to change there, but in our views, change comes from being sat at the table and not telling someone what they should be doing, but listening to them and really taking their thoughts in. So next year, we're doing a pilot with a dairy farmer here in the Netherlands. We're going to be planting some of our white beans on their land. And we're going to be hopefully creating a case study that many other dairy farmers can follow, and showing that there is an income outside of dairy and there is a way outside of dairy. So that's a big part of our impact plans. I would also say a big step next year will be having our emissions on our packaging. Again, I think where food needs to go is much greater transparency from both a consumer standpoint, but also an industry standpoint. So that's going to be an important step for us. And I think another thing that we've done, which I hope many other companies will follow, is we've appointed Mother Nature as our CEO. I'm just the founder of Willicroft. And the reason we've done that is because everything we do stems back to the planet. If if Mother Nature feels like it's a decision we should move forward with, then we will. But ultimately, if something is going to harm it, then we step backwards and find a better option. So that's kind of the thinking there. And I think it really helps to shape all of our decisions because it makes decision making very simplistic.